Welcome everyone, and thanks for your participation in this UPLevel webinar brought to you by Signet. Here's your host, Signet's Director of Client Solutions, Marshall Thompson.
Wow, I can't tell you how much I prefer that voiceover to having to ask everybody if they can hear me. I'm gonna just assume that you all can today and just go ahead and jump into this. So everybody, thanks for being here. Time, has always been valuable, but today more than ever, of course. I really appreciate all of you joining us to spend a little bit of time to dig into virtual briefings and a little bit about what we're seeing in the space associated with it. We've got an awesome turnout today. I'm so excited about the attendees that we have. We've represented some of the biggest brands in the world. It just really is a show of how enthusiastic this community is in this immersive marketing, the executive briefing space, whatever you want to call it. This community, so strong, so committed to innovation, and I'm just really glad that we have this opportunity to exchange some ideas. So for those of you that don't know, UPLevel has been a long-standing Signet event. Many of you have been able to attend these events. Unfortunately, those were all in person in the past, of course. This common theme that we're all going through at the moment, where we're having to shift our approach, our strategies to be able to accommodate audiences that join us remotely instead of welcoming into our headquarters and our business homes, if you will. So this is part of that process where we're all adjusting, but as my role gives me the opportunity to have a constant dialogue with those in the space, whether they're collaborators, partners, or customers and prospects. I have the privilege of spending a lot of time with end users and decision makers in the space as they approach these new challenges and we collaboratively work through them together. And a common theme in those conversations has been, because we don't have the opportunities, the events, the networking, and just the natural occasions that we might normally to share ideas and collaborate and commiserate a little bit on what we're seeing in our industry, what would really bring value is having a view into what's happening with other programs, different than the one that they represent, and understanding the challenges that others, their peers and competitors are facing, and some of the ideas that they've been using to navigate through those challenges, some of the successes that we're all sharing, and some of the difficulties that we've encountered along the way. And really just having an opportunity to give some context to what we're all going through, I think is really valuable use of this vehicle, of the UPLevel platform. So excited to be taking it virtually. I think we're going to be showing off some really interesting techniques, tips, and tricks today that will give you some real actionable insight into how you can UPLevel your own program. To help me tell that story, I brought in a couple of my close collaborators, individuals that represent very dynamic and innovative programs from fast-moving spaces and sectors related to their industry, but very different corporate cultures. So this should give us a broad sample of kind of what's happening out there from different perspectives, from different neighborhoods, to give us a wide range of ideas about what might be possible, and hopefully real takeaways that you can apply to your own strategies and programs at home, wherever that might be. So I've got Anthony Pham from Fortinet on with me today. Hey, Anthony, what's up, man?
Hey, Marshall, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Just another Thursday here in the virtual office, right? So you're joining us from California. You're our neighbor here in Silicon Valley. How's the smoke out there?
Smoke's got better. First day opening the windows was yesterday. So it's just the small things, I guess, in 2020 that you can be appreciative of. I think we saw a little bit of sun yesterday too. So hanging in there, just plugging away from home.
Hallelujah. Yeah, we're doing the best we can. So tell me a little bit about Fortinet and what Fortinet does, what space you're in, and just a little bit about your program as far as the executive briefing program.
Yeah, so Fortinet is a top security vendor that's based in Sunnyvale. I've been with Fortinet for about 10 years, and I lead our efforts for the past 3 years or so. And in our Sunnyvale office, I will call it an EVC, a center, but back then the program wasn't really leveraged by the sales folks, and it was maybe not really thought of. So in planning, it was really just 2 rooms off the lobby. That's what I inherited. So rather small versus other programs and names that I, see that's part of the community here.
Awesome. And we all know from watching the industry that security is a hot sector at the moment for sure. The company's been performing incredibly, so you got to be doing something right there. I know it may be an inherited program. You still have some work that you'd like to see through for sure, but kudos on all the progress over the last couple quarters. The numbers you've been putting up have been pretty impressive to say the least. So keep doing what you're doing. To bring another perspective, I've got my buddy Tom on the East Coast joining us. Hey, Tom, you there, man?
Hey, Marshall. Great to see you. Thanks for the quick intro. Again, my name's Tom Sullivan, Corporate Experience Manager here at PTC, and I'm excited today to welcome all of you into our space. This is our Corporate Experience Center, as you can see behind me. Truthfully, it's a bit eerie being in today. I'm literally the only person in. And as you can imagine, before we virtualized, this place was just bustling with customers and partners. All of our 6 conference rooms would be packed. But overall, just looking forward to the conversation today and talking a little bit about how we've virtualized our program, as well as looking forward to how we're thinking about a hybrid model as part of the new normal. So quick background on PTC, we're roughly $1.5 billion sized software company. We have about 6,000 employees globally. And we've been very focused in the computer-aided design and product lifecycle management software space really since the beginning of the company in the 1980s. In the last 8 or 9 years, we've expanded on that portfolio to dive into the worlds of the Internet of Things and augmented reality. And really what we're doing there is focusing on unlocking the digital transformation for our customers by converging the physical and digital worlds together. So that's really what we're trying to represent here in all of these product demonstrations that you can see behind me. We break out our space into 3 major zones. We have an office zone. On the other side, we have a factory zone. And then the space that I'm currently in is our field zone. And so just quickly looking around, on my right-hand side, we have an oil and gas example where we're leveraging things like predictive analytics, machine learning, as well as augmented reality from a digital work instruction perspective. On my left-hand side, we have a customer example from Polaris with their off-roading vehicle, the Polaris RZR. And that's an example of a product that was completely designed in our design software. So I'm looking forward today to talking a little bit about our technology, some of our hands-on demonstrations, and how we were able to virtualize those into a virtual format moving forward. So again, just looking forward to the conversation.
Sure thing. So let's keep it moving, guys. So Anthony, in these conversations, like I was setting up previously, there's so much curiosity about what others are hearing in the space, and a kind of universal metric that we're able to look at as far as a gauge for this sort of conversation is related to briefing traffic. So relative to your own program, not necessarily others. What has been the impact to your briefing traffic that you've seen since maybe end of Q1, February, March, where we had this big drop off, this big pivotal moment where we had to transform? What have you been seeing as far as your customer traffic and meeting volume?
Yeah, I think everyone felt the same thing February, March, right? So any briefings that we had on the dock, some postponed, some was wondering if we had a virtual offering, and our program didn't have a virtual offering prior, right? And so we were trying to figure out in the background, and at the same time, I think our sales field was figuring things out too, because it was March and a quarter for them. Yeah. So that allowed us some time internally to come up with what a virtual offering looks like. So come April, we let the sales teams know, hey, this is what a virtual briefing looks like. And we slowly got more buy-in, different geos did better. And April, like for Q2 for us, we were doing about 2 to 3, sometimes 4 a week. And, you kind of learn some lessons of it and how to kind of tighten things up. But from then, now we are doing 2 or 3 a day, right? So the volume has picked up definitely from Q2 to Q3. This is month end for us. So I don't have the actual final numbers yet, but that's how we're doing as far as traffic wise. So yeah, definitely the volume's picked up strong, and being in security, this is what we've noticed is whether they're prospects or they are current customers in our base, they want to have conversations with us because their business has changed too, right? And we want to be there to show them from, hey, a typical in-person work office, what does that mean security-wise when people are working from home, right? To protect that corporate and home network as well. So, yeah.
Totally. I mean, money talks, right? So like we said previously, you got to be doing something right. So, I mean, the anecdote that you left with me that was so impressive was the fact that you've gone from 2 to 3 briefings a week to 2 to 3 briefings a day in some cases. I mean, yeah. I think that you were kicking off calls with multiple sales teams, in the preparation for this meeting even earlier today. Isn't that true?
Yeah. Yeah, I was joking yesterday where it's like when you have to go day of calendar review, you just know things are just packed, right? So it's one of those things, and it's a good problem to have, right? Honestly, and I've had conversations with sales leaders too that what I don't want to do is drop the quality, right? So there is going to be I don't want to call it a breaking point, but a certain point where we're going to say like, hey, this is how many we could do per day and make sure the quality is still there. But at the same time, I'm trying to use this to, like, hey, look how much this program has grown, and it's probably here to stay, right? When people are hopping on planes again, we never had a virtual offering, so I don't think this is going to go away. So we're going to probably go to a hybrid model, right?
Awesome. Thanks for that. So on the other coast, we've got Tom, also a hot software brand, but an extremely complex story to tell. And I imagine that, there's a lot going on right now. Tom, what did it look like back in February and March for you at that moment where we were all forced to make this transition? What happened right out of the gate?
Yeah, just a quick mic check, Marshall. Can you hear me okay?
Hell yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd say, like many other centers back in February, March timeframe, we saw a dramatic decrease in our overall volume. I didn't get to intro it in the beginning, but where I'm standing here in our corporate experience center, we had just moved here in early 2019. So we had so much excitement about our space, and we were truthfully thinking, how do we get as many people in our front doors as possible and get them to meet with our thought leaders and just physically get hands-on with a lot of the interesting and cool technology demonstrations that we have here. So I have to be honest, it was a pretty big shift for us. But overall, we took a step back and really narrowed down the approach and launched in about a couple of weeks into a virtual program.
Yeah, a lot of action going on there. I'm really excited to see some of the fruits of all the labor that you've been putting into this recently. But what you described is a really common refrain in the industry right now. So we all saw, just like the markets, there was a steep drop off in late March where we saw traffic go almost to zero, while we all sort of had to take a step back and look at what our options were and how we were going to facilitate some of these conversations in a totally new context. And in a lot of cases was contrary to what we believe to be best practices as an industry as far as establishing those human and physical connections in a space. So if I had to summarize what I'm hearing across these hundreds of conversations that I've been having with prospects, customers, and partners in the space, I'd say that we're seeing traffic is down. If I had to estimate an average, I would say maybe 35% is the amount that we've seen a decrease in traffic, just looking at activity and briefing tools and the briefing volume that's feeding into our platform. So a little bit of a decrease, but also complemented on the other side by stories like Anthony's, where there's been a significant increase in traffic relevant to their business and the heat within that sector. As far as all these conversation goes, that's sort of the baseline, if you will. One conversation with one of our old friends and partners, Michelle Limbocker from Nutanix, really stood out. I wanted to bring Michelle in to tell us a little bit about what she's up to with her program. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Marshall. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little jealous that you've escaped the state of California to Colorado. Is it less smoky there?
It is less smoky here, and I won't lie, it's absolutely gorgeous in Colorado.
It's a beautiful part of the world. Well, we're looking forward to when you're able to come back and visit us. But You really got me excited. You know, this virtual conversation is something that we often preface with a little bit of negativity or disappointment that we couldn't be hosting our customers in the traditional way that we enjoy and know so well. Tell me a little bit about beginning of 2020 and kind of what your approach to this whole virtual pivot looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, a shout out to all my favorite peers in the industry. I hope you all are doing well. Listen, we're a little different. We always like to be a little different at Nutanix. And we actually had a virtual offering that we had spun up about last December. So because we're sort of a lean and mean team, we really took a look at, hey, let's offer virtual briefings just basically over Zoom to extend our reach out to our customers and partners across the globe, right? So really back in December, we started thinking about what that would look like. And so we essentially just started offering, we started to test the waters with the sales teams about, hey, would you guys, really consider virtual briefings over Zoom as an alternative, right? And so the sales teams immediately globbed onto it. And so we really started the effort back in December. And then in February, late February, when we all starting to kind of see the writing on the wall, I took the opportunity, myself and my team took the opportunity to say, hey, this is going to be big, guys. Let's expand the briefing program from EBC to EBX, and let's really take it to the next level. Let's rebrand ourselves. Let's rebrand our messaging. Let's package all this up in a massive marketing, campaign, and let's just go blast it out to the entire sales organization and show them how amazing this is going to be, right? So we did that. There was a huge effort, and because it was taken up so rapidly, our volumes, and by the way, our volumes have never really decreased over this time because we had the virtual program. So we were lucky in that sense. But look, around April, we said, you know what? We are going to take it even a further step and really start to work with a production company and pull in all the elements of a true, just like Marshall and team is doing today, really pull in the production team and let's make this a massively rich experience. And so basically I went out and pulled all of our sales leaders across the globe together, pulled their RDs, their teams together, and we did a pilot program in April and May with our EMEA teams. And, it was taken up so well that we just continued to make this big, I'm not going to lie, a very large budget investment into this new platform. But right now, I got to tell you, it's kind of ridiculous. We're like Anthony, we're 2 to 3 a day across the globe. So it makes my team, a little bit nutty, right, with the 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. days. But in this time, we feel it's absolutely imperative to continue to get out to our customers. So how I would sum it up is that we really took a look at rebranding who we are, what the program is, and what we offer, and how it can be an awesome tool for our entire organization.
Fantastic, Michelle. That's so cool, and it's great to hear that success story. I think it gives a lot of those out there in the audience some hope about what's possible if you kind of go all in on this approach to virtual. Tell me a little bit more about that buy-in that you were able to garner with leadership, that support in terms of budget and attention and devoting time to joining these remote calls. Talk to me about a little bit of maybe some less obvious or non-traditional things that you're doing to market the program offering and getting it in front of the right attention.
Yeah, so, some of the non-traditional things, briefing programs, in my experience, I've been doing this a zillion years, right? We're almost it's almost a push situation, right? Where the sales teams are pushing to us, coming to us to request briefings and, get time on our calendars. Ever since I've been at Nutanix, going on 5 years now, I have taken, I guess, a non-traditional EBC approach, and maybe some programs are doing this, but I just interlocked into every single solitary sales motion there is at Nutanix. I don't care what it was. I don't care what it was. I would meet with our CRO, all of the leaders, and just make them insane about the vision. We built the vision of the program, and there was never a moment where I wasn't in their grill, making them crazy, just telling them, here are the statistics, right? Because we have very powerful statistics that we've built over 5 years, pulling data out of Salesforce, creating a campaign. So we create a campaign for every single solitary ABC that we have, and we are able to track that crazy stuff all the way through the system, right? So we have powerful data that goes right to the sales teams. They're coin operated. Really, we're going to close business. You're seriously coin operated, right? So really, that was my approach. And it's been my approach for 5 years at Nutanix, and I have not slowed down, and they're sick of seeing me. But the good news is, and everybody was MBO'd. The entire sales organization is MBO'd, right, to do 3 briefings a month. So I'm telling you, we can't handle the volumes, but it's worked out.
It's a great problem to have. Michelle, thanks so much for joining us. That's great stuff. Just to kind of tie that up, I mean, I would say that some key things that I've learned from Michelle over the years, and that attitude of not taking no for an answer. I love that. And really just marketing your program. You know, the sales teams are doing it with their customers. You got to make sure that you're front and center. So I love that aggressive approach. That's so awesome. Thanks for sharing today. So looking at that traffic question, thanks, Michelle. So that's a great starting point, right? So we understand what is going on in the space, what is going on with our own programs in terms of traffic, up or down, but there's been a huge shift in the actual approach and facilitation of how we get there. So like Tom mentioned, there's a moment to evaluate the landscape, understand what's possible. And a lot of those decisions in this first phase came down to technology and how we will actually even support a virtual briefing using technology and tools, some of which were existing for some programs, some of which had to be started from scratch as an offering for the programs wherever they might be. So I want to, shifting gears here to the actual tech. Anthony, maybe you can start me off here. Talk to me a little bit about your stack and how you're actually facilitating these virtual briefings from a technology perspective.
Yeah, so for us, we didn't standardize on a certain platform. We want to keep it flexible with our customers. There are certain customers in certain industries that don't like Zoom, right? Or not don't like Zoom. They just, for security reasons, they prefer to use other platforms. So with that, we adjust to them. So we have a number that are available. But speaking of Zoom, that would be preferred when there is no choice or preference, right? For us internally. I feel that Zoom, they've done a great job just with their GUI and interface of allowing, just the video quality and then just just transitioning, right, between presenters, and just, it feels that it flows a little better. Not trying to offend anyone that's from other companies, right? Citrix will go to meeting. We use that heavily as well too. They've made some improvements to look a little more like Zoom. And then, there's Teams, which, I know for security reasons that sometimes is more preferred, but there are some limitations with the GUI, right? And that's maybe just chalk it up to Microsoft being Microsoft. So.
Yeah, and when it comes to customer service, right, we're all bound to the customer and being able to accommodate what the customer's preferences and best practices are according to what kind of firm that they represent. So that agnostic approach, I think, is very common across the board. I am hearing a lot about Zoom being an easy choice due to that ease of use that you talked about. They're doing some interesting things there to make the experience not too burdensome to actually join and participate in. And I think that's why they're enjoying some success recently. So it's pretty cool to watch our neighbors here in San Jose grow at that rate, onboarding hundreds of millions of users. But talk to me about, so the virtual briefing experience needs to be special. It needs to be a little elevated beyond what sales could do from their own laptop, right? So talk to me a little about the extra things that you're doing on top of that to make this feel more like an executive briefing and differentiate it from the countless other Zoom calls that we're on throughout the day?
Yeah, when we're looking at what the virtual offering was going to be, one of the things that you actually offered us was two tools, right? One of them was a virtual screen where you could get the customer logo on there and then the agenda loop, right? And we've used that. That's standard with us for all our briefings, and it simulates if the customer were to walk in our lobby, they feel a little love with their logo, the personalization, and then just they get to see the agenda. So we use that at the very beginning of all of our briefings, right? It's an anchor, right? And it rotates. It's better than, people joining like, oh, look at your home office and look at your cool background today, right? So it adds formality. And, for you giving that to us, that is something that I think there was some hesitation in the beginning where I'm like, I don't need it. But I realize now that I don't do any without those, right? And then to the next level, you also have a customer engagement app, which it centralizes, who the speakers are, their bios, what's on the agenda, description of that, and then any other collateral, right? If we're doing targeted, per their industry. So with that, we send that to them. There is survey feedback ability as well too. So we're leveraging the two tools that, you provide, and that's what we've done to make things a little more formal and not just another like typical sales call where I'm like, hey, I need the speaker to come in to just present or demo something. So yeah.
Right on. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And considering the volume that you're doing, that you need these quick serve options to be able to provide. So you can have, like we said, multiple briefings a day, and it's all about velocity and operational efficiency within your program, which I think that some of the themes that we're so excited about with automation and integration with scheduling tools to be able to basically run those experiences based on the work that you're already doing in the planning process is really critical to success there. So this is where I want to turn to Tom. So Tom, you're kind of my go-to gadget guy, right? Like you've not only with your center, but just my personal interests, you're a hired geek if there ever was one. So talk to me a little bit about your tech stack, what you're doing to enable briefings both today and a little bit about, what the elevated elements are you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, to kick it off, we standardize on Zoom right out of the gate. Anthony, we do support other web conferencing tools. And I think that's important for people to understand is that we always want to cater to the customer and ultimately what they're looking for. But agreed with all points that Anthony made on gallery view and polling and just some of the ways that we can represent our technology through that platform. I'd say beyond that, then we looked at our technology stack and said, how do we standardize all presenters with the same equipment, right? Same cameras, same headsets, microphones, obviously lighting, all these different things, and then a direct web connection, right? So we can, reduce any poor quality in connections.
Yeah. Best practices kind of stuff that makes such a huge difference.
For sure.
to have everybody kind of a lowest common denominator, even playing field, so you can guarantee a common like quality level of experience. Very cool. But I know that you, beyond the conferencing capability, you're probably up to some pretty wacky stuff. So tell me a little bit about what you're laying on top of that to kind of bring those stories and concepts to life within the virtual meeting context.
Exactly. I mean, you can imagine, right? I'm standing here in our playground and we leverage this space so much that at the beginning we thought, how do we bring this space to life virtually? And we're leveraging a technology called Matterport. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it's very popular in the real estate space. And we're pulling up a video right here where you can see this is actually on PTC. So I encourage everyone, go check it out. Take a look visit ptc.com. What you're seeing here is a 360 view of our space. And we actually dive into all of our technology showcases with this at the beginning. And this really helps us level set on the different industry use cases and helps us lay out the space, right? We're passing some beer taps on the left. We're heading into our manufacturing zone. The zone where this started was what we consider our office zone. And then where it's going to jump to now is actually where I'm standing, which is in our field zone. And this is really where we can tell that end-to-end digital transformation story that the PTC has to offer.
Very interesting. So you're so involved with kind of VR and AR experiences. Do you have ways that you can kind of bring those into these conversations and showcase some of that technology that you're using?
Absolutely, yeah. So I feel fortunate in the sense that as a software company, a lot of our software actually shows up very well virtually. Things like augmented reality, virtual reality, as you mentioned, even the Internet of Things, showing real-time predictive analytics and machine learning of factories that are out there and existing today. And we can show that data and bring that data in and represent that live to a customer in real time. Reality software, so if we can pull up a quick video of our offering Vuforia Chalk. This is a great example where we can leverage this application, which is free in the App Store. And what that does for us is it allows us to enable our customers to download this application, and then they can dive in with one of our engineers and remotely collaborate in a demonstration in real time. Really exciting.
Wow.
Again, you know, when we're in the hands-on, we're wearing HoloLenses, we have iPads, we're getting very interactive with the technology, and this is just one of the ways that we're looking at getting hands-on. There's another case that we can pull up with a technology called Onshape. This is all about 3D design in the cloud. And so what's interesting, similarly to Vuforia Chalk, we can actually have customers download this application as well and run this from a mobile device, an iPhone or an iPad, as you're seeing on the right. And what an engineer on our side, Adam, is driving a product review, and this is a design review of a turbocharger. Right-hand side, you can have a customer at home in real time seeing that design and interacting with them, which has been very engaging and helping us kind of bring some of that magic that we used to have in the space.
I love it. Very cool. So we still haven't figured a way to liberate that Polaris Razor that's behind you from the center, so we can go tear around in the Seaport neighborhood on that thing. That seems like a pretty good way to bring it to life.
Totally agree. Yeah, it took us a couple of days to get it. We literally had to disassemble the entire Razor, throw in the elevator, reassemble it. So I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
I love it. And for the VR conversation, maybe this is totally outlandish and not possible, but have you gone as far as to actually like ship hardware devices to some of your customers there, like the headsets, things like the HoloLens that you mentioned? Are you actually trying to provide those? I can imagine logistically that's very challenging, but for maybe some high profile engagements, does that happen at all?
Yeah, so it's absolutely on our roadmap. And you can think about the technology challenge there. I would say companies like Oculus and Facebook are making it easier. They just launched the Oculus 2. And what that does for us is it allows us to actually take an input from the matter for 3D rendering. We can feed our space and create a digital representation of our physical space in VR. And so, throughout the summer, I was having meetings in VR and diving in and collaborating, and we can actually walk around the space and look at product demonstrations. But the true magic of that is then we can teleport out of the space to a customer site. And I can be in one of our customers' manufacturing environments or construction sites and really get that hands-on feel for what they're doing. So, as you mentioned, logistically, it's challenging in the world of COVID. In terms of sanitary issues of sending devices and receiving them. But, I think once we get that sorted out, it's going to be a pretty compelling use case for the future.
Definitely. Very cool. I love that. I mean, you're definitely on the advanced end of things as far as enabling these compelling digital experience through immersive demos like you're talking about. I mean, this is literally your business, right? Is using those technologies to solve problems. So yeah, PTC is in very good hands with you at the helm, designing what those are going to look like, I know. But yeah, so much interesting opportunity. But in reality, Tom, you're a bit of an outlier. You're pushing the envelope here. And just to kind of summarize a little bit about what I'm hearing in the space, Anthony has a very relevant context where, he's doing his best to just maintain with the volume and deliver an experience that is elevated beyond what sales might be able to do on their own through some simple but effective tools that are going to elevate the experience, but most critically, not in the way of the briefing process, both from an internal operational perspective and from the customer perspective in terms of their ease of use and experience. And so if I had to boil down some of the key things, what I've really identified as priorities across all different types of programs in this industry is the fact that to be successful, these technology and tools really need to integrate neatly into that existing briefing process. When we think about the continuum of the sales cycle and how where we're at in the funnel when we reach this EBC stage, you know, these are high value targets, and we're trying to decrease that time to close, hopefully increase the total revenue number if possible. So, you know, what we're looking for are ways to enhance the experience, to add value to the conversation through these kind of high-tech, delightful means in terms of you know, a virtual experience where we can get content that's relevant to my case study or my industry, and that can be automated through things like the briefing tool, the scheduling platform that you're using. And that's so critical when we're thinking about tying that into the greater story of the business continuum of the sales cycle, of making sure that everything is associated back to that CRM data and making sure that the pipeline information is clean. I know this is kind of boring stuff, but it's so important to the integrity of that data and making sure that it doesn't become an extra thing to manage in your process. Looking ahead, what's really exciting to me is there's a lot of talk about a single pane of glass experience. We all know that executives and their attention spans tend to be short. There's not a lot of patience for extra steps, if you will. So what we're excited about is really establishing this common unified platform for experiences where you can leverage existing investments in content, experiences, demos, to be able to house them in a very accessible pane of glass like this application that we have on screen here through a customer engagement app. There's so many portals out there in the form of these microsites, but as far as actually consuming that content, what I think is on the customer side, what's really critical for success is the frictionless experience in terms of it's the same as we talked about conferencing. It has to be a one-click to join. There can't be an app store or a sign-up process involved. It really needs to be immediately accessible if it's going to add any value to the conversation. And so that's really where we're focusing a lot, is creating that ease of use and integrating neatly into the processes that already exist, so we're not creating extra work or tasks for our clients to be able to bring those experiences to life. So technology is really exciting. You know, that this is the vehicle with which we're using to bring those experiences to life. But really, as we all know, what's so important about the executive briefing process is the human element. That's so much of what defines the difference between a demonstration just by a technical subject matter expert and a true executive briefing is the personalization and curated elements that really bring that human element and interconnectedness to the conversation. So I want to pivot here to the personalization part of this and hear a little bit about how you guys are approaching this. This has been a major challenge for everybody in the community that I've been talking to. How do we make our customers feel important and like they've been anticipated and you have this curated experience when we don't have all the conveniences and niceties of our beautiful executive briefing centers and that whole program? So Anthony, why don't you, Tom, why don't you start this one off for me? Because I know that this is something we've actually talked about, and you've done some cool stuff in the past. Why don't you start me there with kind of historically what you've done and how you're adjusting today?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say, you know, we broke it into two phases, right? There's the technology piece and then the delight piece of the coordination of an actual visit. I'd say on the technology side, we spent a lot of time really trying to custom and create curated experiences. So the two examples that I showed before, right? If you think about Euphoria Chalk and an augmented reality example, we always find ways of how we can make that relevant for customers. So if it's an automotive customer, for example, you know, we'll go out to a car and have them guide us through how to change the oil, right? If it's an example of 3D design or augmented reality, we'll actually work to get some CAD geometry from a customer in advance, bring that in, and in many cases, be able to design out a specific kind of custom tailored experience for them prior to the visit. On the delight side, you know, I'd say we made a lot of progress before we went virtual, right? We were thinking all about, you know, similar things that we've talked about, right? In-room warmers, all the way down to custom designed desserts and cupcakes with customer logos on them and things like that. And I would say as we're getting into about 6 months into the virtual program, these are things we're thinking about, right? We're really wanting to launch into that phase 2 of creating those delight moments virtually. And I'd say shout out to the ABPM conference. We've heard from a lot about some pretty exciting ideas, and we're looking forward to incorporating those soon.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, there's so many great ideas out there, like you say, and it's a matter of prioritizing what's going to be most impactful for your program and kind of stack ranking those according to what you're going to launch into first. So many different avenues to go, but I know that you're kind of leading with this technical approach, which makes total sense for your brand. So Anthony, you're another kind of traditional software company. You've got, like we've set up here, not the biggest program out there as far as your physical space, and you're very, you're selling 1 million miles a minute. So what have you been able to do to differentiate your offering from what the standard out there?
Yeah, if we take a step back, I think folks on the call know that the virtual briefings, the duration, right? We're looking at shorter time, right? And so that means less formal stuff like at the office where you're like breakfast, lunch, dinner, or, somewhere. So it's, concentrated where it's like, anywhere from 1 hour to 3, and it's like, that's their time. And they want to hear about a certain solution, product, or whatever that we have, right? And, for us to help them guide through, their business needs. So with that, I'm going to take everyone back to high school, and how I kind of deem and see it is, it's almost like homecoming. Right? It's not prom, because prom, you got to go rent that tux, you got to get that flower, corsage and all that. But to me, it's like, it's for us to engage again, right? With our customers, our prospects, people that we have. And it's like, hey, we are having a meeting. There is little formality of it. Sometimes there's dinner, it kind of depends on the group you're going with homecoming and so forth. So with that, kind of translating it over, kind of boo-hoo-hoo me with my volume and kind of how lean the team is, I've put kind of the onus on our field marketing teams and then the account teams themselves, right? I'm like, hey, look, this region's doing this where they're sending, Grubhub gift cards or credits, and then they let the customer order what they want. Some are sending, credits to our swag store where it's like, yep, you can pick up a polo, keychain, whatever, right? Whatever tchotchkes they want. So it's a little different, but Tom kind of hit it. We're almost getting in this phase 2, which what I don't want is when, if we're still staying, if this is going to be for, another 6 months or so before people start traveling, I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, we came last time and it's the same, right? We need to start thinking of how do we get them to come back, right? Because there is value. Their business needs change, right? And then so I don't want it just to be, another briefing. That's what we heard last time from you guys. So those are things that we are kind of starting to think about. And, of course, being part of ABPM, the ideas are there to just kind of almost pick from.
Absolutely. I love it. I know that you're doing the best you can. And I think that makes total sense to delegate a little bit of that to the sales teams. I mean, they have skin in the game and every reason to make these experiences as polished and high profile as they possibly can. Right. So that makes perfect sense. So to get a different perspective here, so we're a few technologists, right? So to bring in a little bit of different flavor here, I wanted to turn to a very well-established program that has a massive global footprint and really has a renowned recognition for their hospitality and customer experience overall. I wanted to turn to get into perspective from Kelly from Dell. Hey, Kelly, you there?
Hi, Marshall.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. So, as you know, I really revere what you're up to there. The entire team is doing amazing work at Dell as far as delivering a truly kind of one-of-a-kind executive briefing experience. Talk to me about the way that you've adapted some of those best practices to fit into this new context that we all find ourselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. What an intro, first of all. So yeah, personalization has always been kind of in our DNA at Dell, and it's been an important part of what we do in the center. So transitioning to this virtual world, it really allowed us to start to get creative again and start to think about, how can we continue to show our customers that we value them, that we value their time, and go a little bit above what they might be expecting. So there are a couple different things that we're trying, and I'll share some of those with you. And the first is pretty simple and zero cost and not a lot of effort, but tends to make a really good first impression, which is virtual backgrounds. And I don't have one today, but what we normally do is create a custom co-branded virtual background for our discussion leaders and our internal sales teams to use during the briefing. And, it's one of the very first things that the customers will see when they're joining the briefing, and it gets a lot of comments. It's a good first impression that the customers are able to see that we took that extra step for them. And throughout the briefing, we'll also use transition slides of the discussion leaders so the moderator can introduce them and make it feel a little more like a briefing flow rather than a bunch of Zoom meetings strung together. So that's how we kind of use the tool a little bit to personalize it a little bit more. But other than that, we've definitely done some gifts, delivering gift boxes to the customer's home. And more popular recently is using those funds that may have been set aside for customer gifts to donate to a charity. So what we do is we'll take, it's great, especially in these times. So we'll look a little more into the customer and research them on their website, figure out, what their values are, what kind of causes they support, and we'll pick a charity that kind of aligns to those things. And then during the briefing, we'll present a sort of donation certificate to them. And as a thank you for your time and participation in this virtual briefing, we've donated to this particular charity on your behalf. So that's been really popular. As Anthony mentioned, food delivery to their home through Grubhub, Uber Eats, things like that. Always really important. Through the stomach is the best way to get them. And on that note, we've tried a couple other things, like catered breaks is one of the newer things that we're trying out. So if we have a longer briefing, maybe 4 hours or so, and we might have a 20-30 minute break somewhere in the middle there, we'll send a kit to the customer's home before the briefing, and we can do a coffee break, a chocolate break, and my personal favorite, cheese break. And so we'll send those items to the customer's home. And then during the break, everyone would go, make their pour over coffee and then join each other for some, casual conversation in between these serious briefing discussions. So that one has been fun. And even after the briefing, we'll do virtual happy hours, cooking classes, things like that. So definitely different than in person, but we found some options.
That's fantastic. These are some really exciting ideas. Even new stuff that I haven't heard before today. So thanks so much for joining us and sharing some of that. I really appreciate your input. Talk soon, Kelly. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
So kind of wrapping that up, Kelly, I think made some awesome points there, things that I've never even considered before. A couple ideas, just to summarize all that up. Some personalization, actually bringing the brand and customization into the actual conferencing experience has been a real theme for us. So through things like welcome screens and actually skinning the actual conference application itself seems to be a popular means of differentiating the experience. And through those, delivery is easier than ever. There's so many interesting options of getting things to people's home offices, wherever those might be. I'm looking forward to expanding on some of those ideas for virtual happy hours and coffee breaks. I mean, that just makes so much sense. So awesome. I want to, in our last few minutes here, we've talked about some very cool strategies and ways to up-level the virtual briefing experience. But this is only, it's been a long year. It feels like it's taken a long time. But I want to shift to looking ahead. How are we planning for the future? So Anthony, I want to start with you because you're in a pretty unique position of, over the past year, we've been deep in discussions and planning for an actual new physical briefing center in the form of your new Silicon Valley headquarters. Talk to me a little bit about how that process has been affected and how it informs some of the design considerations as you set a course for the future.
Yeah, just like what you mentioned, right? Our discussions a year ago had nothing to do about like, hey, what about your virtual? Because there was no such thing, right? And so now what we see, and it's going to stay, is what if certain team members from a customer isn't able to make it out, right, to corporate once people are traveling again? Or what if our subject matter experts, discussion leaders are flying and traveling themselves? So what we're doing now is just subtle changes within kind of the space, right? And making sure that there's certain rooms that are allocated, that the tech is more rich, right? That we're able to accommodate and, hold these meetings virtually as well too, right? So, it will be a mixture. We're calling it a hybrid role, right? There's going to be the traditional in-persons, but then whenever we know that there's going to be some remote attendees, then there's going to be some dedicated rooms where, there's extra cameras, AVs, just a little beefier, right? To make those, to up level it, right?
Yeah. So one question that I've been conversations with programs throughout the space has been a lot about interactive experiences. And as we chart our course for what comes next, you and I, a big focal point where a lot of budgets and conversation has been focused in the past has been on these kind of large format media experiences through video walls and things like that, where historically we talked about it being an interactive moment through touchscreens and things like that. Have you taken a step back from the touch experiences due to the social distancing limitations and need to keep those things clean? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, in our space, we talked about, with that big video wall, initially it's like, yeah, I think interactive would be great where people can kind of touch and click through what, solution that kind of matters to them. And I think when you guys had the in-person UPLevel event in February, there was a vendor that had it, but I think that kind of coincided at the same time where we did make a decision that's like, hey, we think, if it's to be an impressive thing when people first walk in, maybe it doesn't need to have to be, a touch, type scenario environment, right? And, plus it's so big that you can't really digest everything, right? And I think now you guys are getting a little sneak peek of what we're building, right? So this is currently being built. We are going to be done, I think it's scheduled to be in February, right? So, current space, I kind of alluded to it in the beginning, where we're only 2 rooms. You see a floor plan there. It's a very big space. It's going to be the whole left wing of a bottom floor, right, in our new building. So yeah, excited about that. And, it is things to think about, right? I know back in the spring workshop with APM, a lot of folks were talking about like, you plan for a beautiful space and then you have to put hand sanitizer everywhere, right? So, we're gonna just kind of keep an eye on how the health, environment is, right? But also kind of know in advance that, we have to make the appropriate space and make people feel comfortable, right? And then at the same time, what you're talking about is the virtual part is, my plan is, with the amount of rooms that we are going to have, the virtual briefings, instead of people being at home, they're going to broadcast from one of those rooms, right? Just to make things more refined.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So Tom, in Boston, you already have a state-of-the-art center. You have that luxury. So talk to me a little bit about how you're transitioning to enable that space for what the future of briefings looks like in 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, you saved the best topic for last. I love it. This is it's been really exciting for us to think about hybrid. Maybe just to start, we're fortunate in the sense that our 6 conference rooms do have the web conferencing capabilities. We have interactive touch displays. We have cameras set up in every room, so people remotely can see us and we can see them, and bilateral, obviously, so everyone can hear everyone. And I'd say the challenge for us was when we leave the conference room, right? So if at that point in the agenda where we want to go on what we call a technology showcase, we want to head down factory or jump in the medical device lab. At that point, we would have to tell everyone virtually, hey guys, sorry, we'll see you in an hour because we have no way of us. And so this is a very unique challenge. And I'd say when we brought this internally to our AV groups, a lot of people said, well, that's a simple problem, right? It's a broadcast similar to what we have today, right? Camera, lav, microphones, lights. and we'll broadcast out. And I think many people on this today that if you're broadcasting and pushing your message as a company, is it kind of that one directional message, you're probably missing the mark, right? Because we've learned from hundreds and hundreds of customer visits that we really need to let them drive and really drive the agenda. And that's what we try and do with our technology. So with that being said, internally, we're very much focused on this idea of a tri-directional communication. And I'll just share one slide here. This is just what we've been using internally to hand wave our way around this, because we're absolutely still going to do broadcasts, right? We can join events like this and we can present out. But the main thing that we don't want is having the ability as a presenter to present to both a physical and a virtual audience simultaneously. And if you take note with the arrows, you'll also notice that we want the physical audience to be able to interact with the virtual audience as well. And really the point there is that out of, again, sitting through hundreds of visits, no one sells our software better than the customer themselves, right? They have those aha moments. We get a HoloLens on there, they have an iPad and they experience something with augmented reality or one of our IoT demonstrations. We want them to be able to turn to their other colleagues and be able to communicate what they saw there. So it's an exciting problem, and we're definitely we're looking forward to solving it in the future.
Totally. It's such a great way to look at things. I love the tri-directional brand. I can't wait to see it kind of come to life and evolve over time. So really excited about what you're doing there. I think this is great stuff. And both of you guys keep up the great work. And thanks for your time today. I think we covered a lot of interesting stuff that's going to be super valuable to the audience. So I know I'm up on time here, so I'm struggling to wrap everything up, but I think you've heard a lot of great ideas today, but we're really only scratching the surface and bringing a limited perspective to help give a view of what's happening in the space across a couple different companies and how they're adjusting and excelling within this new context that we all find ourselves in. But you know, this is just 1 hour of that sharing that we're doing here today. And I think that, you know, what's been really foundational in my career has been the opportunity to be part of the Association of Briefing Program Managers through the ABPM organization. So I just wanted to, in my last minute, give a quick moment to Elizabeth Simpson, president of ABPM, to tell us a little bit about the upcoming fall conference for October and what they have in store for us.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marshall. And thank you so much. You know, it was fantastic to hear from Anthony and Tom and Michelle and Kelly and everything they're doing. This is exactly the right kind of conversations that we all need to be having right now. And it was fun to see all those member logos who are attending this workshop. Thank you so much to Signet for offering it to this wonderful community. And it's been a fantastic discussion. Marshall had asked me to give you a little preview about the fall workshop series that's coming up. And there's a lot of overlap because our job as an association is really to listen to this community and make sure that we're providing, just like you do for your own customers, whatever information and tools you need to make sure that your programs are operating at a really high level and considered vital strategic resources within your own organizations. And you're doing that over and over again in really different ways. You know, even more maybe than you ever have, which is pretty impressive on its own. So related to that, this fall workshop series is the same in some ways, but different in others in that it's focused on briefing professional career development, just like it always is at the fall, but with a real emphasis on working together to elevate virtual briefings and solve the challenges related to them and talk about the opportunities related to them. So, you know, we're really focused on that. And so in addition to that curriculum, that we'll have very highly collaborative workshops. So you'll get training that you need, you know, that may be sales engagement training or discussion leader engagement, but we'll also be talking about, you know, talking about the value proposition of virtual briefings and, you know, a new area of actual virtual briefing centers. And so some things that are really going on to hopefully meet you all in the moment and get you what you need right now and really have in-depth conversations about a lot of things that Marshall was talking about during this whole this webinar.
Yep.
We'll just spend, you know, several live hours doing that. So we're really looking forward to it. It's October 19th to the 22nd. So just go to abpm.com for more information about it, but we're looking forward to seeing you all there next month. Thank you.
I can't wait. Can't wait to actually see everybody's faces. Elizabeth, it's great to see you. Thanks so much to the guys that joined me on the call today. I think we got into some really interesting stuff. So just wrapping it all up here, one exciting thing about the virtual world is that we can overlay all these capabilities on top of the conversation. One thing that we always do as part of UpLevel is giveaways. You know, we're not going to stop that even for this forum. So I get to be Oprah today. What I'm excited about is everybody that joined us today is going to get a Signet gift box. We'll be following up not only with contact information to be able to make that happen, but a package of collateral that's based on what we're doing in the briefing today. So you know, those two things you can look forward to. And this was selected at random, but let's take a look at, we have 3 individuals that won what we're calling our platinum box. So we have Hugh, Marnie, and Jennifer. Look forward to hearing from somebody from the Signet team to figure out how to get that to you. Don't know what's in it, but I'm sure it's gonna be good. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all so much for your time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation with each of you. Like I said, we'll share the content and the collateral and follow up some visualizations of everything that we talked about here. But let's have a real conversation. You know, a great part about my role not traveling these days is I've got a lot more time to be on calls and to work through these kind of conversations with those in the space. So please get in touch. Let's chat it through. I'd love to hear your ideas and understand how we might be able to help. So everyone, I'm going to give you a virtual goodbye, but thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to see you all at the next UpLevel and ABPM and whenever we're able to get together in person. So thanks so much. We'll be talking soon.